Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. Time for a replay and a bit of a replay analysis. What I usually do is feature replays of really good players, but I also try to feature replays of, well, let's say newer players or players who might have some areas to improve. I still very much fall under that second category. I feel like I've improved quite a bit with ranked, but there are still things that I go, oof, I really shouldn't have made that play. Today, sent in by Blue4, we have Captain Chromosome, Assy-Cat and Drunken Bayraktar versus Average AK Enjoyer, ENZ101 and Saracen. Gunboat Diplomacy, non-naval version. We're going to be following Blue4. As the replay description said, we're going to execute a push over Charlie. Now, this is something you don't see very often, because it is such a congested zone or a difficult zone to get into, as you essentially only have this bridge if you want to fast move. And yes, you can amphib across, but that's quite a distance. You're going to need to do a lot of smoke to just cover off this entire approach. And, well, setting up a smokescreen takes time, maintaining the smokescreen takes time, and crossing takes potentially more time. And during that time, the enemy is going to be going, oh look, something's happening. Scramble the helicopter, scramble the plane, scramble more units, and they can spawn those in from Bravo. Normally on this map, you get the fights between Hotel and Echo, infantry going to, well, pardon the pun, going to town on each other, and making life very difficult to cross these bridges potentially. But at least here, you got this bridge, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th essentially. And the crossings here are so short that amphibious units can do quite a lot of work. So, what do we have going left? Rather important, what do we have going left? A couple of Martyrs, M113, Fooch, a couple of Leopards. We have the PNMK, a couple of helicopters in the form of the HGM helos and the anti-air helo, and the automatic. Interesting setup. I am not quite expecting a push like this over Charlie, because if I were going to do a push from Alpha to Charlie, early game, I would want to send motorized units. I would send wheeled units there. But hey-ho, he's not going alone, because he has support from Assy-Cat. And Assy-Cat's going in with a couple of helicopters. Apache, Cobra, Recon Cobra, Kiowa Warrior. We get a couple of Blackhawks with infantry, and some Frogs with presumably Delta. The enemy team seems to be focusing over here on Hotel and Echo, which is, let's say, the more classic play to make. But while that sector is sort of being held down by the South African forces here, the real damage is being done here, in Charlie. You can see that the Fooches are coming in, the Cobra is making a pretty deep assault into Bravo and getting shot down. We got a Lazur trying to shoot down as many helicopters as possible. And over here, the Rifleman 90 have been offloaded. Now, before some of the potentially more elite players watching this go, oof, why the fuck would you want to offload your infantry there? These are somewhat newer players, alright? Let's cut them a break. We were all new once, and if you have any suggestions on how they can improve or where it would have been a better position to offload, then by all means, put them down below in the comments. Anyway, we have the drop over here from the infantry, and the mechanized assault is coming in as well. What I'm kind of missing with the mechanized assault is a bit of reconnaissance, because at the moment, all the reconnaissance is being provided by the units themselves, which generally have poor, maybe the Martyrs have medium optics, no, not even Leopards, poor optics. These guys are essentially blind, without the support of any recon units, and the last recon unit is playing a very dangerous game against a couple of Strelas. So what's happening in the meanwhile on the right? Well, we got a couple of Roykats going forward, as well as Casper K-Cars, SASF-90 caught at two different sides of the river. And so far, it seems that they're keeping these guys quite nicely at bay. The Buffaloes, Casper K-Car, Casper Mark II, and Boko up here, just trying to take a defensive position. You can see that they're really not attempting to push here. The bridge over here is empty. And over here with Delta, they have nothing defending it, nor scouting it. There's even a CV coming in. I think this is a bit aggressive and early. A CV at this point? I mean, you don't well, yes, you can argue you have the sector secure, especially with what's coming down this road. But I would rather invest 100 points into more units to really secure the sector or push right into Bravo. Because keep in mind, you're operating right next to an enemy spawn point. So sending in a CV here, not that ideal. Oh, never mind. The CV is prepping to go into Bravo. Hell of a bombing run here. Couple of martyrs got destroyed. Some Panzer Grenadiers survived, fortunately for blue. Leopards are taking a beating. And it seems that Red 4 doesn't have that much income either, because there's just a couple of T-72s coming out. But this is where the real firepower might be, or where the points might be invested in Su-27 PUs, which are at the lowest veterancy. So, as this is happening, Red 4 should be making a push. Because they should be recognizing at this point, or at least, well, okay, let me rephrase. They shouldn't do anything. In Wargame, I always try to figure out, okay, if they're strong here, they're weak somewhere else. Where are they weak? If they have a lot of air power up, that means that they have potentially fewer ground units. Let's push the ground. If they have a lot of artillery, then they're weak somewhere on the front lines, or maybe they don't have a lot of planes. So let's try to play the plane game. Always try to figure out where the enemy is weakest. And Red 4 could have recognized, let me phrase it as such, could have recognized that Blue 4 might not have that much in Hotel. You can see that ENZ 101 is definitely pushing up. He's making a move, and Blue 4, I think, got a bit overexcited here. Pushed across the river when they really shouldn't have, not with that few units. And with that, they're losing almost all the South African forces here. They're still not very focused here, or at least just 2 Blue 4 players going left and only the one on the right. 25 Ts flying around. You can see that the average AK enjoyer is also a plane aficionado, because he has both the PUs and the 25 Ts. And they're doing quite a lot of work, because there's just a bit of infantry left. The CV has died, and now there are a couple of helicopters coming in. If you have helicopters like these, I would always try to split them. And by that, I mean don't have them in the same division, the same group. Because if this helicopter gets hit by a large anti-air projectile, that damage could splash out onto the other helicopter. So just try to have them a bit more separate, and that way you can keep them alive a little longer. Strela 10M, moving right into the welcoming reception of Rifleman 90 and Delta Force. They pull a Schnetzka into the battle, which is just doing a bit of murdering on infantry. Mi-35 should have an easy time eliminating all the infantry here. Rocket pods, Yak B, but rescue is coming. The Stingers are being brought to bear. And that's a hit. And that's a miss. And that's a kill. There we go. And now Delta Force and Rifleman can push up nicely into the enemy. 25T coming out again. It's a great attack plane, just not against infantry. Because it doesn't have rocket pods or bombs or whatever. But you can see that it is once again making a presence and getting quite a few more kills. At this point, Delta should be getting the CV kill rather soon. There it is. Boom. Bravo neutral. That's good. And usually this is the point where people go, yeah, we're just going to quit. If Blue 4 manages to put a CV in here, I'd say it's GG. Right now, I'm not so sure. The reason for that is that Red 4 can just cut off reinforcements coming across this bridge. Because everything that Blue 4 wants to get in here has to come across the bridge, or has to be flown in by helicopter. Both options are taking a while, whereas Red 4's units come in from Foxtrot and can be here very quickly. You can see that Asicat does have an M8 AGS over there to make sure that nothing comes down this road. Anyway, the CV is coming in. Over on the right, the South Africans have held the line. Once again, with a bit too few reconnaissance units for my taste. But okay, they're making it work for the moment. And we got CV approaching. Yeah, if they capture this, they can spawn in stuff behind the enemy. And the Saracen units, the Vidra, the infantry over there, there we go, they captured it. At this point, they do have a +2. Red 4 held a +2 for quite a while. Red 4 has Fox, Golf, Hotel and Echo. And Blue 4 should now be able to capture Charlie as well, putting them at a +4. But I don't believe it is that part in particular that's going to win them the battle. You can see a lot of units coming in. Again, no reconnaissance units. Blue 4, work on your recon, boys. You need it. Spot the enemy. Wargame is an informational war. The player with the better information and the better reaction with that information tends to win the battle. I would probably also buy a second CV here, but I don't know what sort of level of income these guys were playing with. Alright, here too. Split your helicopters. These two are awfully close. Now in this case, Blue 4 does not have any good NTR. Although if this hits, this is 9 HE. That will not kill a helicopter, but it'll do a hell of a lot of damage, and its partner will also take a hell of a lot of damage. So split them and make sure they're slightly more spread out. What we got here? A whole lot of Jaeger. Not necessarily the best infantry here. I would probably try and put Panzer Grenadier with a Martyr there to make sure I can do a bit of damage at range with an autocannon. The Roycat can kill transports, potentially the occasional tank. And the Panzer Grenadier, if something gets really close, can kill it. Again, keep in mind, these are somewhat newer players. And I really appreciate that after more than 8 years of this game being out, there are still new players coming in. Now, the conclusion is pretty much foregone at this point, because Blue 4 has this area, solid control, and Red 4 starts to surrender. Now, let's have a look at these stats, shall we? Blue 4. This is the guy we followed, Captain Chromosome. He was the German player. Newer player. 90 games only. Asicat, 214 games. Definitely not so much of a newer player. And Drunken Bayraktar, 519 games, but a fairly mediocre victory ratio, at least when you compare that to an average victory ratio of 50%. Average AK Enjoyer, 318 games, 61%. ENZ, 18%, very new player. And we got Saracen, 543, 58%. I think Red 4 should have won this. Let's see how they could have pushed back, shall we? Alright, we are once again at the point where Blue 4 is making their dash into Charlie. Red 4 is making a move with all the transports, as well as the helicopters, going into Echo. This is potentially the first thing that I would try and do different, because you don't really need helicopters here unless you're trying to grab Echo on the other side of the river. Which is not what they seem to be doing. He seems to be sending all of his helicopters under the escort of Sokols, again, split your helicopters, forward. And yes, it is working, but the infantry here is taking too long to offload. You can see that it could have been dropped off potentially here or there, eliminating the Roycats. And since there is very little NTR covering this, there's just a cactus over there that only has 4 missiles. Of course, yes, they also have SASF, but they're already getting murdered by the Sokol. You could have very quickly eliminated this entire push and then moved around it. But what I want to draw your attention to is this bridge, and this area here, and all of the helicopters. At this point, Red 4 knows what is coming. They can see everything. They can see the helicopters, they can see the dropped off infantry even, they can see the Cobras over there. They're responding by buying NTR. Agreed. They're trying to get rid of all these helicopters. But by doing so, they're kind of over-investing in in NTR defenses. And what they're not doing is probing where the enemy is weak. One Recon helicopter, something like a Salamandra, with an Mi-8T KT, could have flown right across here, eliminate the CV here, eliminate the CV there, done. GG. Get your Recon. Try and probe the enemy. See where they're weak. Just fly an empty transport helicopter around. I mean, it's a conquest game. If you lose that one helicopter, nobody's really going to care. But if you find an opening in the enemy's lines, well, you could just turn this game around. Let's say that they have missed that opportunity now. What I still see here is opportunities with these. SPW 50 PK, amphibious 23 kilometers an hour. They're not fast. They're not greatly mobile when doing amphibious ops. But they can hop across here. And they once again can get right here. And just make sure you don't fast move, because the enemy's resupply lines are coming over here. But, well, that would be a nice target. Take a position here and just spot everything. Turn your weapons off, spot everything, see what Blue 4 is bringing. Because at the moment, they don't have a lot of information. Let's see what Red 4 can see. Yeah, they can see this huge column coming down here. This, for Blue 4, I think was potentially a bit too aggressive, or at least too concentrated. Some units here, some units down there would have been better, because then Red 4 had to split, and their units would be from here busy engaging this, and this side would potentially be able to push up better. So a couple of martyrs there, and you would have pushed right through. CV and Golf should have been offloaded. But come on, you guys got quite a lot of transports. And yes, the transports are dealing with the SASF, agreed. But there is still a lot of opportunity for these to move up. In this case, for the defense of Bravo, I'd say invest in a few units. There is essentially a lot of trash that Blue 4 has. Trash that cannot necessarily remain unaddressed. Because yes, a Black Hawk with twin miniguns could be a threat to the CV, and so could a Frog be, but when dealing with these units, they're not that dangerous. If you have, let's say, a Sopel, they could very quickly wipe out all the helicopters. Strela 10Ms can do the same, but are not the ideal unit in the situation, I think. Because they need to reload every once in a while, and while they are operating next to a FOB, it's just not ideal. Red 4 at this point also has no reconnaissance left, so they do spawn in a reconnaissance unit, which I really appreciate. It allows them a lot more information. I do like the use of their helicopter here. That allows them to eliminate all the infantry, although the infantry here is kind of stuck. If you get a couple more, I don't know, recoilless rifle jeeps, something really cheap like an anti-air platform for 15 points, you can wipe out all of this. You can wipe out all of this. You can potentially be struggling against these, but that's what you got the helicopter for. And Blue 4 has nothing. Blue 4 has no anti-air, except for these. These are coming up, but then again, that's what the FLACCOM is there for. Aside from that, a couple of cheap tanks. Up until the point where the Leopards were there, they have died, the Leopard 2s, thanks to the SU-25T patrol. I would probably not be investing in the second SU-25T. I would be getting some cheap tanks. Because it's just a bunch of fairly cheap and heavily wounded units. You just need to kill them. You don't necessarily need to outplay them in any way. See, this is good. 23 2s. This is going to wipe out infantry very quickly. It's just the range is a bit short for 1,050 meters against these. These will kill you, but these should be enough to wipe out the rest of the infantry. Over here, they're still not trying. If the enemy is making such a play here, then they have almost all of their forces invested. They have some forces invested over here. Just have a hover over what the player name is, and you can figure out, oh, it's just the one guy. It's not more than one unit, or more than one player, because, well, there's more than one ways to tell that. Essentially, as you can see, that this is the South African guy, and South Africa doesn't gel with anybody. They have no coalitions. As for here, Blue 4 is making a bit of a mess of things, because they have Milans, but they don't have a Recon, so they can't see anything. LAV going... Why did that spawn over there? Spawn here would have been faster, ideally. Maybe he spawned it for Delta and then decided to fast move it all the way over there. I'm not sure. This Sokol... Here. Opportunity. Use the Sokol. Drop off the CV. Ideally not in the open. It's not a great spot. Use the Sokol. Fly. Fly, 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 my pretty. And go over to Delta. Because, yes, there's a cactus, but that wouldn't have the range. And, yes, they're covering their main spawn with this cactus, which I believe is just parked there. But they're not covering India. Opportunity. See, Red 4 had a lot of opportunities here, but they just... I think they got too busy, too stressed dealing with this incursion. And I understand, I've been there. I know what it's like to be pushed and just have your brain essentially lock up and go, no, 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 no. We're going to focus just on this. Take a breath. Don't buy anything for 30 seconds. Zoom out and go, okay, what do we really have? I'm Red 4. What? Whoops, that's a bit less. What do we really have? We got a bunch of Roycots over there, and okay, now it might be too late. Defend this, defend this, defend this. Just a couple of defensive points. ATGMs, Recon, done. Maybe a couple of anti-air units. Don't push with your anti-air units. Not a right call, especially now that you know South Africa's here. Aside from that, we know that we have the area here. We don't need to be pushing here. We got the areas, we just need to get this back and get this back. What else? Where are they weak? They're weak here. And this Snezhka is finally going out and seeing what the enemy does not have, essentially. Where are they weak? Here. One Bokkop and their transport. This is probably a Ratel. Was a Ratel because it's already getting obliterated. Yeah, the Bokkop just got out. This is good work. And it took Blue for quite a bit of time to secure this. In this case, if you know that there's almost nothing here, send a couple of helicopters. Just send a couple of helicopters, some fast... this is not particularly fast. But stuff like... Actually, you could have used this. It's not fast. Not off-road. But on-road it can still do 110. Send that up. The transport for the CV, send that up. Right over the bridge. Anything shoots you? Okay, now that we know something's shooting you. Something is not shooting you? And you can make it into Delta? Ooh, opportunity. Of course, you might wake up Blueford to the prospect that they do not have anything covering that road. But hey, by that time, maybe more of your units can already be on the way. At this point, though, Red 4 stubbornly pushes in here. This Flakcom has no reason to be here. The Snezhka is doing recon, but a bit aggressively, and there are units around there. And you can see the Dreadfort just keeps pouring stuff into here, into this incursion. It is not that important in the grand scheme of things, I would say. Yes, it's a +1. They now have a +2 because they got the other side of the river as well. But contain this and let Blue4 just waste a lot of points. Make sure that you potentially lock this bridge down. Just check it out with one helicopter, send some recon, and get rid of the footage. And then anything that's getting shot from over here that's crossing the bridge gets side shot. Killed. Very easily. Jaeger. Yeah, I already addressed the Jaeger. There goes the average AK enjoyer. I think the average AK enjoyer sent way too much of his air force into the fight. You don't need two 27 PUs. You don't need two 25Ts. It is too much. One T-72 PU is 180 points. That could have been 4 T-72s, which, especially before Bluford took this, could have done a lot of damage. All the infantry here would be dead, and with 4 T-72s, you're paying 40 points. You could even get a cheap anti-air unit for 15 points, and you'd have a pretty decent package to deal with whatever happens to be in Bravo. Now, again, under pressure, it is not this easy to figure all this stuff out. Zoom out, take a breath, and go, okay, what do we have? What do they have? Where can we assault? What can we do? What can we build up first? Can we build up a defensive line here? Okay, let's do it. Can we build up a defensive line to make sure they don't get Charlie? Okay, let's do it. Can we potentially cross over into Delta? I don't know, let's try. Let's see what we can send across. Right, that's the end of the replay. I hope you guys found the video useful. Again, if you have any further tips or things that I might have missed that you think are noteworthy, by all means, let me know down below in the comment section. These are newer players, and I think that the Red 4 players could have pushed them back, had they taken a breath and taken a moment to zoom out. Thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you soon for more videos.